The opening statement of my opponent's speech will set the ground for my argument in opposition to his plans to ban violent video games and inhibit free speech. Quote, "The idea that games glorifying gun violence have a negative impact is not a new one." Close quote. I actually agree with this statement. The idea itself is not new. Accepting and embracing this idea, however, is not something I am comfortable with, nor do I expect you as the judge to be comfortable with. The Constitution of the United States of America is a contractual agreement by the people for the people in which the government agrees to protect the people's life and liberties. Violation of this contract would not only be detrimental to the function of our government and society, but will warrant an entirely new government to be put in place to better protect its citizens. I will delve into the subject shortly. In a June 28, 2011 New York Times article, writer Seth Chisel summarizes the status of video games in the United States of America when he writes, quote, "It is now law of the United States of America that video games are art," close quote. The article goes on to quote Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia in writing, quote, "that suffices to confer First Amendment protection," close quote. The First Amendment of the United States of America's Constitution reads, and I quote, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances," close quote. Citing the Constitution, the basis of all law in the United States of America, a ban on video games in any regard would be a direct violation of the First Amendment. I propose to you a hypothetical situation in which video games have been banned and citizens of the United States become complacent with their First Amendment rights being infringed on. The seemingly small violation of intrinsic right in the United States of America is then taken advantage of by lobbyists and politicians for any number of reasons: economic gain, struggle for power, etc. Slowly and steadily, rights and freedoms of the American people are taken away until society is broken down into a totalitarian state in which the government's abuse of power has left little or no individual liberties, and all content in video game, music, movies, and the news censored and controlled by an entity we previously considered a fair and true government. The First Amendment of the United States of America's Constitution is the most important clause in any document in the United States. This being the case, it should be held in the highest esteem and with the utmost respect. Any infringement, regardless of how seemingly minuscule or grossly large, should be treated the same and struck down immediately as to best protect the interests of the American people as a whole. I would now like to touch on a few specific points that Luke has made, citing quotations directly from his affirmative constructive speech. Quote, "Almost every kid in America spends hours and hours a week pretending to kill people," close quote. I have multiple issues with this quotation that I would like to bring to the judge's attention. Firstly, it is a claim, not a warrant. There is no statistical evidence to back the claim. How many hours per week? What defines the term kids? What defines every kid in America? It seems to me that Luke has come up with this conclusion on his own. Even if American children were spending many hours playing video games a week, they would be doing just that, playing a game, not pretending to kill others, not training themselves to be more aggressive or violent, but simply sitting down and playing a game. Another point I would like to dissect is when Luke compares conditioning a child to not steal and then asks if it is a jump to conclude that acts in a virtual violent world will cross over into reality. Firstly, I am unsure of the analogy between these 2 points, so yes, I would answer it is a jump to conclusion. A child is not conditioned to steal. A child is not conditioned to not steal, A child is taught and instilled with moral values as to why stealing is wrong and the repercussions associated with it. Conditioning has nothing to do with it. Around 2 minutes into his speech, Luke says all children are affected by playing video games. I would like to point out again that this is a claim and not a warrant backed with statistical evidence. By his own admission, Luke acknowledges that video games glorifying gun violence may not be a factor. Quote, "Taking one possible factor out of the equation will help reduce gun violence," close quotes. How can something help if it is only a possible factor? I think this point speaks for itself. I would also like to point out that Luke's comments on the ESRB are not factual. He's quoted as saying, "ESRB mandates you have to be 18 or older to buy games with a mature rating," close quotes. According to the ESRB website, open quote, "ESRB supports retailers' voluntary policies restricting the sale or rental of M mature and AO adults only computer and video games in the United States. It is clear that this is not a law and simply a guideline retailers may or may not follow." Thank you for your time and good luck in your future speeches.